The cemetery was almost empty. Rain had begun to fall, soft enough to hide the tears on my face. I stood in front of my wife's grave long after everyone else had left. The woman I had loved for 12 years was gone, and with her, every dream I had ever built. As I turned to leave, I felt someone gently grab my hand. It was my mother-in-law. Her face was pale, her hands were trembling. She looked over her shoulder as if someone was watching us. Then she leaned close to my ear and whispered just 6 words. "Don't sleep in your house tonight." I stared at her in confusion. What are you talking about?" She shook her head. "Don't ask me anything, just promise me you'll stay somewhere else." Before I could stop her, she hurried toward her car and drove away. I stood there frozen. My wife had just been buried. And somehow, it felt like the nightmare had only just begun. That night, I ignored her warning. I unlocked the front door of my house. The silence inside felt different. Heavy. Unnatural. Then I noticed something strange. The bedroom light was on. I was absolutely certain I had turned it off before leaving for the funeral. My heart began pounding. Slowly, I walked toward the bedroom. And that's when I heard someone whisper my name from inside. "Before we begin tonight's story, I have one small request. If emotional and suspenseful true stories keep you glued to the screen until the very end, then don't forget to subscribe to True Night Tales. Every subscription motivates us to bring you even more unforgettable stories. Now, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare yourself for a story you'll never forget." After my wife's funeral, my mother-in-law whispered, "Don't sleep here tonight." The rain had almost stopped by the time everyone left the cemetery. Gray clouds still covered the sky, making the afternoon feel like midnight. I stood alone in front of my wife's grave, unable to believe that Emily was really gone. Just a week ago, we had been planning our anniversary trip. Now I was staring at a cold marble headstone with her name carved into it. I couldn't move. I couldn't cry anymore. There was simply nothing left inside me. As I turned to walk away, I felt a hand gently grip my wrist. It was my mother-in-law, Margaret. Her face looked terrified. She wasn't crying anymore. Instead, she kept looking around as if someone was watching us. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Don't sleep in your house tonight." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She tightened her grip. "Promise me." "Why?" "Because if you stay there tonight, you may not wake up tomorrow." Before I could ask another question, she quickly walked away, got into her car, and disappeared. I stood frozen. Her words echoed in my head during the entire drive home. I kept telling myself she was simply overwhelmed with grief, nothing more, but deep inside, something didn't feel right. When I reached the house, everything looked normal. The porch light was still on. Emily's flowers were still hanging beside the front door. Even her favorite wind chime gently moved in the evening breeze. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Silence. The kind of silence that makes every heartbeat sound louder. I slowly walked through the living room. Emily's coffee mug was still sitting on the table. Her sweater was folded over the couch. It felt as if she would walk through the kitchen any second and smile at me. Instead, there was only emptiness. I headed toward the bedroom. Halfway down the hallway, I stopped. The bedroom light was on. I clearly remembered turning it off before leaving for the funeral. A cold chill crawled down my spine slowly. I pushed the bedroom door open. No one. The room was empty. But on the bed lay a white envelope. Across the front, written in Emily's unmistakable handwriting, were 3 words, "For David only." My hands trembled as I picked it up. Inside was a folded letter. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone, David. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you everything so many times, but every time I tried, someone was listening. You believe my death was an accident. Wasn't. Please don't trust anyone until you discover the truth, especially someone who has been pretending to protect us for years. Whatever happens, don't stay in this house tonight." I stared at the page. It felt impossible. Emily had died in a car accident. The police had confirmed it. Everyone had confirmed it. So why had she written this before I could think? A loud bang shook the front door. Then another. Someone was trying to get inside. I quickly switched off the bedroom light and hid behind the wall. The banging stopped. A deep male voice called from outside, "David, I know you're home." My blood ran cold. I had never heard that voice before. Seconds later, footsteps circled around the house. Then came the sound of breaking glass from the kitchen. Someone had entered. I held my breath. The footsteps were slow, patient, as if the stranger knew exactly where I was hiding. My phone had only 10% battery. With shaking hands, I texted my best friend, Michael. Someone broke into my house. Please call the police. Message failed, no signal. That had never happened before. I looked out the bedroom window. A black SUV was parked across the street with its headlights off. Someone was sitting inside, watching the house, watching me. My heart pounded harder than ever. There was only one way out, the back window. I climbed outside as quietly as possible and ran through the backyard without looking back. Branches scratched my face. Mud covered my shoes. I didn't stop until I reached the old church 2 blocks away. Only then did I dare check my phone again. Signal had returned, but before I could dial the police, my phone rang. The caller ID read Emily. I couldn't breathe. My wife had been buried only hours earlier. How could she be calling me? My finger slowly pressed answer. There was silence. Then a woman's voice whispered, "If you want to know why I died, go to locker 214 at Central Station. Go alone." Line went dead. I stared at the phone. It wasn't Emily's voice. It sounded distorted, almost mechanical, but whoever had called knew about the letter, and somehow they knew I had escaped. For the first time since Emily's funeral, I realized something terrifying. Her death was only the beginning. I stared at the phone for what felt like an eternity. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped it into the wet grass. The number that had called me was Emily's, the same number I had personally switched off before the funeral. I remembered slipping her phone into her handbag at the hospital, believing it would never ring again, yet it had. And someone had answered my questions before I could even ask them. Go to locker 214 at Central Station. Go alone. Those words echoed inside my head as I drove through the empty streets. Every passing car made me glance into the mirror. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following me. When I reached Central Station, it was nearly midnight. The station was almost deserted. A janitor pushed a mop across the marble floor while an elderly couple waited for the last train. Everything looked ordinary, too ordinary. Locker 214 was at the far end of the station. I walked toward it, my footsteps sounding louder with every step. The locker was old, scratched, and covered with faded stickers. It required a key. I was about to turn away when I remembered something. Emily always wore a tiny silver key around her neck. After the accident, the hospital had returned all of her belongings to me. Without wasting another second, I rushed back to my car, opened the small box containing her jewelry, and found the necklace. The tiny silver key was still hanging from it. My heart raced as I hurried back into the station. With trembling fingers, I inserted the key. Click. The locker door slowly opened. Inside was a black backpack, nothing else. I unzipped it carefully. There was a thick envelope, several photographs, a USB drive, and a small voice recorder. The first photograph made my blood run cold. It showed Emily. She wasn't alone. Standing beside her was my best friend, Michael. They weren't simply talking, they looked frightened, as if they were hiding from someone. The next picture was even worse. It showed Margaret, my mother-in-law, secretly meeting a man wearing a black suit outside an abandoned warehouse. On the back of the photograph, Emily had written just 4 words. "He killed my father." I could barely breathe. None of this made any sense. Emily had always told me her father had died of a heart attack. Had she lied? Or had someone lied to both of us? My hands reached for the voice recorder. I pressed play. Static filled the speaker. Then Emily's voice appeared, soft, weak, and terrified. "David, if you're hearing this, then I couldn't stop them. Don't have much time. My father's death wasn't natural. I found documents proving he was murdered. Same people are responsible for my accident. I trusted someone I never should have trusted. If they realize you have these recordings, they'll come after you next." Suddenly the recording stopped, not because it had ended, but because another sound interrupted it. Footsteps, real footsteps, behind me. I slowly turned around. A tall man wearing a black coat stood only a few feet away. His face was hidden beneath a baseball cap. He smiled. "You shouldn't have opened that locker," he said calmly. Before I could react, 2 more men appeared from opposite sides of the station. I was surrounded. The man took one slow step toward me. "Give me the backpack." I tightened my grip. No, he laughed quietly. You have no idea what you're carrying. Then he reached into his coat, not for a wallet, not for a phone, for a pistol. My heart nearly stopped. The station suddenly felt impossibly silent. The janitor was gone. The elderly couple had disappeared. It was as if everyone had vanished, leaving only me. And the three strangers. The man raised the gun and pointed it directly at my chest. You have 3 seconds, he said. 1. I swallowed hard. 2. My fingers tightened around the backpack just as he whispered. 3. Just as he whispered 3. A deafening train horn exploded through the station. For a split second, every head turned toward the arriving train. That single moment saved my life. I threw the backpack as hard as I could toward the opposite platform. The 3 men instinctively chased it. I sprinted in the other direction. People poured out of the train, filling the platform with hundreds of passengers. Children cried. Suitcases rolled across the floor. Announcements echoed from the speakers. The crowd became my shield. I pushed through the sea of people without looking back. Behind me, I heard angry voices. There he is. Don't let him escape. I ducked into a restroom and locked myself inside the last stall. My chest burned from running. I could hear footsteps entering the restroom. 1 pair. Then another. Someone slowly walked past every stall. Tap, tap, tap. The footsteps stopped directly in front of mine. Silence. I covered my mouth to stop my breathing. Then a phone rang outside. A man's voice answered. No, he isn't here. After a few seconds, the footsteps moved away. The restroom door closed. I waited another 5 minutes before stepping outside. They were gone. But so was the backpack. I cursed myself. Everything Emily had left me was inside it. Then I felt something in my jacket pocket. The USB drive. During the chaos, I had unknowingly shoved it into my pocket. The photographs and recorder were gone. But the USB was still with me. I immediately drove to Michael's apartment. He had been my closest friend for nearly 15 years. If there was anyone I could trust, it was him. When he opened the door, his face turned pale. David, what happened to you? I told him everything, the letter, the phone call, the locker, the armed men. He listened without interrupting. When I finally showed him the USB drive, something strange happened. For just a fraction of a second, his expression changed. Not surprise, not fear, recognition. He knew exactly what it was, but a second later he smiled. We'll watch it on my laptop. His smile looked forced, almost rehearsed. As he walked into the kitchen to make coffee, I noticed something lying on the counter, a black leather keychain. My heart stopped. Attached to it was a silver wolf charm. I had seen that charm before, only hours earlier. In one of Emily's photographs, the mysterious man meeting my mother-in-law outside the abandoned warehouse had been holding that exact same keychain. There couldn't be 2 identical ones. Cold sweat rolled down my back. I slowly looked toward the kitchen. Michael stood there with his back to me, speaking softly on his phone. Got him, he whispered. He brought the USB. He doesn't suspect anything. My blood froze. The one man I had trusted like a brother had betrayed me. Without making a sound, I slipped the USB drive back into my pocket, quietly unlocked the apartment door, and stepped into the hallway. I had just reached the elevator when I heard Michael shout from inside. David. The apartment door slammed open behind me. I turned my head and saw him standing there, not with a cup of coffee, but with a handgun in his hand. I'm glad you liked it. Good luck with your video. I hope it performs well on YouTube.